IMTA is a new type of farming that aims to be better for the environment than conventional agriculture. But what does IMTA stand for? How does it work in practice? And how can we know whether or not it's actually working? In this video, we'll address these questions one at a time. If you're new here, welcome. This channel is about making a living from plants, soil, and animals in a sustainable way. So let's get started. IMTA stands for Integrated Multitrophic Aquaculture. It's a form of aquaculture that aims to mimic the complexity of an ecosystem by integrating different types of organisms at different trophic levels within the same system. You might have heard of polyculture in rice paddies, or silvopasture, where trees and shrubs are. Integrated with livestock grazing, IMTA can be thought of as a generalization of these concepts to include aquatic organisms. In an IMTA system, organisms from 3 or more different trophic levels are grown together in a way that they're waste products, and byproducts are used as resources by other organisms in the system. A trophic level refers to an organism's position in the food chain. Primary producers such as macroalgae, seagrasses, and phytoplankton are at the base of most aquatic food webs. They capture energy from sunlight through photosynthesis and make organic matter and oxygen. Herbivores that eat the primary producers are in the second trophic level. Carnivores that eat the herbivores are in the third trophic level, and so on. When the primary producer is macroalgae, IMTA is sometimes called seaweed aquaculture. When fish are included, it's often called integrated multitrophic aquaculture. To clarify some terminology, aquaculture is the farming of aquatic organisms. This can range from small ponds to large ocean enclosures. Mariculture specifically refers to the culture of marine organisms. Integrated refers to the integration of different species or different types of organisms into the same system. And finally, multi-trophic refers to the inclusion of organisms at different trophic levels. Now let's take a look at a real-life example of an IMTA system. This is a schematic diagram of an IMTA system with macroalgae mussels and fish. Macroalgae, such as kelp, are large seaweeds that grow close to shore in shallow waters. They're an excellent food source for herbivorous fish such as sea bream and sea bass. After harvesting the fish, the remaining biomass is used to fertilize the macroalgae, which can then grow to maturity and be harvested again. If there are enough nutrients left over after the fish harvest, mussels can be cultivated on ropes or long lines. These would be suspended in the water column above the sea bass and sea bream. The fish would swim below the mussel lines and eat any algae that fell off. Mussels are filter feeders, and they would also help clean the water by removing phytoplankton, which provides additional nutrition for the fish. Any waste produced by the fish would then become food for the macroalgae, completing the cycle. So you can see that all the waste and byproducts of each organism are used as resources by another organism. Another example of an IMTA system is the combination of microalgae, sea urchins, and fish. Microalgae are single-celled organisms that grow in the sunlit surface waters of the ocean. Sea urchins graze on the microalgae, and fish eat the sea urchins. The fish waste fertilizes the microalgae, and the cycle continues. The concept of IMTA was first proposed in 1996 by Stephen Walm, professor at the University of Stirling in Scotland. He received the World Aquaculture Society's highest honor, the aquaculture, for his pioneering work on IMTA. Why do we want to integrate different trophic levels? An important reason is because it mimics the complexity of nature. Natural ecosystems are composed of many different kinds of organisms interacting with each other in a complex web of relationships. By contrast, industrial agriculture has a long history of simplification. This includes simplifying the genetic makeup of crops and livestock breeds, simplifying the types of plants and animals that are grown, and simplifying the interactions between organisms in the ecosystem. For example, monoculture is the practice of growing only one crop at a time on a piece of land. Monocultures are particularly vulnerable to pests and diseases, which can have devastating consequences. If a pest or disease comes along that targets that one crop, then the entire crop is lost. Polycultures, on the other hand, are more resilient because if a pest or disease comes along, it's as unlikely to wipe out the whole system, since there are other plants present that can continue producing food. IMTA systems similarly increase resilience by diversifying the species and trophic levels in an aquaculture system. Another advantage of IMTA systems is that they can reduce waste and pollution. As you saw in the example with the sea bass, sea bream, and mussels, the fish waste becomes fertilizer for the macroalgae. Whereas in conventional aquaculture, the fish waste can build up and pollute the water. This can cause problems for the fish and the people who eat them. Pollutants from the environment can also be removed by the organisms in the system, such as excess nitrogen and phosphorus from agricultural runoff or wastewater treatment plants. Phytoplankton, mussels, and macroalgae are particularly good at this. And another benefit is that IMTA systems are generally more productive than conventional aquaculture. For example, in an IMTA system with macroalgae mussels and turbot, researchers found that the biomass produced was 4 times greater than in a system with only turbot. This means that more food can be produced per unit of area, and that more of the energy from the feed is converted into food for human consumption. One concern about IMTA is that predators such as sea otters or cod could come along and eat everything. While this is certainly possible, there are ways to mitigate the risk, such as keeping the system enclosed so that predators can't get in, or using smaller mesh sizes so that the fish cannot get out. Also, in some cases, the predators could be part of the solution. For example, in a system with fish and sea urchins, the fish could eat the sea urchins. If the sea urchins start to get out of control and eat too much of the algae, the fish population can be increased to keep the sea urchin population under control. Another concern is that IMTA systems are more complex, which means that there's more that can go wrong. For example, it might be more difficult to harvest the different species at different times of the year or different life stages. However, the benefits of IMTA appear to outweigh the challenges in most cases. How do we know if IMTA is actually working? This is an important question, and it's one that scientists are still trying to answer. There are a lot of variables to consider when evaluating an IMTA system. Some of the things that scientists are looking at include the amount of biomass produced, the diversity of species present, the amount of waste and pollution in the system, and the overall resilience of the system. One way to evaluate the sustainability of an IMTA system is to use a framework like that of the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, ASC. This is a set of standards for responsible aquaculture. Some of the things that the ASC looks at include environmental impacts, social impacts, and economic viability. In general, IMTA systems appear to be more sustainable than conventional aquaculture, but more research is needed to be sure. The potential benefits of IMTA are so great that it's worth doing more research to find out whether or not it works. IMTA is a relatively new farming method, and it's still being refined. If you've got ideas about how to improve IMTA, I'd love to hear them. Leave a comment below. Also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. I'm working on more videos right now, and I'll see you next time.